Good morning, and welcome to Stuff I Find Interesting. This is episode 7, and we're going to get started right away. It's a sleepy Monday morning, which is why there's no light. We're keeping things very quiet, right? Very nice and kind of mellow. Ease into the day, ease into the week before I have to be a responsible adult. Now, look at what we've got here. And now, when I was talking about the orgone stuff, I forgot to mention some of the coolest things about it. And that is Devo, the song they sang, whip it good. They said that they wore the red dome in their music video because it collects orgone energy. Now, maybe they were just being funny. I don't know. But that's one cultural reference. Gorillaz bassist Murdoch Nichols is seen using an orgone accumulator during the video for their song Pac-Man. Hal Duncan wrote a book about it. Jack Kerouac wrote about it. J.D. Salinger used to use one, according to his daughter. Kate Bush describes one in her song Cloud Busting. Orson Bean did orgone therapy. I don't know who that is. Peter Brock, a racing driver, did the orgone thing. Burroughs did the orgone thing. Woody Allen has an orgasmatron, which is a cylinder which sort of has an orgone kind of thing going on. So it's really interesting. I forgot that I didn't scroll down enough. That was probably the best part of the whole thing I was talking about. But we are going to start with some photos. We're going to do some eye candy stuff. And we're going to start with Luigi Pesci. Luigi Pesci took what are known as salt prints. If I have that right, I'm not real sure. I looked it up. Very early photographer, 1850. So photography, like the first picture was like 1839 or something. So very early time, and he was able to coax some really magnificent images out of somewhat crude and not really perfectified and perfected equipment. So these are eunuchs in the Persian sort of government, in the administrative arm. So eunuchs are sexless males, and they become sexless through surgery where things are removed. I don't know if the whole thing is removed or just parts are removed. I didn't really get into that because we want to keep this kid-friendly. But yes, these are the Persian eunuchs. Next up, we have Messy Nessie, my favorite. We love Messy Nessie. Really? Okay, I guess it's not closing. If you want good content these days, you have to deal with the ads. It's just the way it is, unless you want to spend a lot of money. And I don't really want to spend a lot of money. I don't have a lot of money, so it's really kind of a moot point anyway. Vintage Muse de Jour, the Queen of Mars. Now we're going to talk a little bit about fashion. And I'm going to show you some pictures, and you're going to be like, oh, yeah, okay. So this was in the 1920s. Things got a little weird. And if you remember, like the movie Metropolis, that was a very big inspiration for some of this fashion. Science had pushed boundaries, right? Things were electrified now. So there was sort of like these endless possibilities, and that's reflected in this type of fashion. And this was used in, Broadway shows and dancing and stuff. The more edgier stuff, to be sure, but it was out there. Here we have the balls. I'm not real sure what that is, but it's kind of cool. Probably really heavy. And this will be in the links, so you can look at all of them. But I wanted to stop for a minute, especially at this picture, and point out that not that long before this picture was taken, maybe 50 years, 60 years, like women couldn't show their ankles. They were considered scandalous. So, yeah. All right, next. I wanted to show you guys this picture. Now, remember I was talking about a culture lasagna? So this is a ruins of a Georgian fortress in Tiflis, and it's really a series of fortresses, kind of. It's fortresses all the way down. And so when I was talking about that hill and the removal of the dirt, you're going to see more of this kind of stuff as the dirt gets kind of removed. So this is something that's more exposed, but the only reason why it's more exposed is because the front of it is still being used, like people still live there. In other parts of the world, this is not unusual. You look out your backyard and there's, this ancient ruin that people might even live in. I've seen that. It's especially in like China, some of the caves, Turkey, in some of the natural caves. It happens. Now we have some more pictures. Now these are some more pictures by Luigi Pesci, and I wanted to show these to you to kind of show his genius. So, excuse me for a second. I was cold, but I warmed up just a little bit. So, Luigi was able to coax just the most amazing images of his time. He was probably one of the first Europeans to lay eyes on some of these things. Now, what I wanted to show you is this is Baalbek. So he was one of the first people to take pictures of Baalbek. And if you've ever heard about Baalbek, it was probably on Ancient Aliens. And I think it's because of the size of the stones and how do they move the stones and where did the stones. I think it has to do with just the sheer massiveness of the place. And oh my God, how could anybody do that? Well, people did do that. So here we have some more pictures. This will also be in the links. And if you scroll back, there are photos like this of Lebanon, Syria, northern Palestine, northern Mesopotamia, Iraq. I'm forgetting a couple. But it's a really, really big chunk of stuff to look at. If this is your kind of thing, it's a lot of fun to sort of check out. This is some steampunk stuff I found. I have no idea what's going on. I have no idea what this is for. We have a little dude down here. Hello, little dude down there, who is maybe operating the machine. No, it looks like the operating thing is here. I do not know, but there are vehicles on it. And it's got gears and stuff. Very neat. If anybody knows what that is, it's just a random picture. And I said, oh, that's interesting. This is another picture that I found was interesting. And I was imagining myself walking down a street and turning a corner and seeing this building, right? Just like, It's very imposing, but also very beautiful. I don't know if it still exists. I don't know where it is. It was on an architect blog. Maybe I can blow this up down here. Let's see. It looks like it's in Berlin. So there you go. It's a building in Berlin, which may or may not still be standing. This is an old picture. Next we have, I hope I'm not massacring this poor guy's name because he's really quite extraordinary. Dionisio Gonzalez. He does these surreal architectural visions. So they're not real, but they look real. So this is one of his projects. And you could see this is it's almost very Mondrian-esque. Mondrian's the guy who painted the paintings with the sort of like the blocks, and people always look at it and they say, why did that painting sell for $2 million? It's just a bunch of blocks. I could do that. That's where you know Mondrian from. And this is, and I'm probably massacring his name too, but this is just some of his stuff. And I think his other work is actually even cooler. So let me go back to his other project right quick. And he did like sort of an apocalyptic thing. So these are not real people. These are not real structures. They don't actually exist. But he put them there as if maybe they did exist and you could walk up to them. So they're like somehow futuristic, but from the past at the same time, right? With the vines and stuff hanging off of them. Um, he did this. This one is really cool. I like that one a lot. Um, it's fascinating, right? So thank you, Senor Gonzalez, for your art. Memories of a Scottish photographer. This is just a random guy who loved photography. Well, not too random. I mean, he was not an amateur. He was just slightly above an amateur photographer. So he wasn't like a super professional, like well known, but he wasn't just a total noob either. But these are some of his photos, and I thought that they were just beautiful, that there's a softness to them that is really incredible. This one is called In the Marchland Towards Hungary. I think it might be my favorite. Just beautiful, beautiful images. That's in Berlin. That's in France, Bavaria, on the Danube. And it goes on and on. There's actually quite a lot of pictures from this guy. He's got some people. There's someone making something. That's at home, so maybe that's Mrs. Elliot. That's kind of cool. Next we have demolished New York buildings. This is extra fascinating to me because this is practically in my backyard. This is the Cornelius Vanderbilt II house on Fifth Avenue. And if you know the Vanderbilts, they were a huge industrial family. They still exist. They're still around. There's one of their houses is up the road from me. This particular structure, however, was demolished, and there's lots of cool things to look at. The only one I did want to show you before I go back to that huge mansion is the original Penn Station, right? That was a beautiful structure. But I was looking for Madison Square Garden. I guess I could do Control F, right? See, but now I'm committed to scrolling. Okay. I apologize. Uno momento. What happened? There it is. So apologies for that. That is Madison Square Garden, the original. So if anybody knows what it looks like now with the lights and the lasers and the dome and the bleachers, and it's a completely different thing from this. So it's kind of wild to think about. So going back to the mansion, this mansion was built during what's known as the Gilded Age. And the Gilded Age is when these very rich, usually industry-related people, had these big, beautiful houses and lifestyles and parties, and just many of them became philanthropists. I don't know. I suspect it was like out of guilt, like, oh, we better donate some money because we have so much of it. This is just talks about how it was built and when it was built and the interiors and the colors. This was really all I was able to find as far as what the inside of it would have looked like. There's very few pictures. There were a lot of pictures out there. During COVID, I know because I was like looking at them. I was going from room to room, and that information is no longer available, which is weird because the house isn't even there. So why should it even matter? Like all this stuff has been broken up, sold, given to the family. You know, I don't know. These are the interiors. You can see they're very lush, very dramatic. This is another Vanderbilt house. This is the Cornelius the First. This is the inside of his. And that's that. And then there's some random images of the Vanderbilt mansions. This one's in Hyde Park. This is from Hyde Park. Hyde Park. Hyde Park. Hyde Park. I know that because I've been there. Look at this thing. This is crazy. That's just like one fireplace out of who even knows how many. This was Cornelius's summer home. So like when he got tired of living in his huge mansion that took up an entire city block, he said, hey, I need to go to my summer mansion. And he would go to his summer mansion. All right, so now we are screwing things up. No, we're not. let me um, let me open these up. Okay, we're moving along quite nicely. So next, I want to talk about polar bears and maps. So in the old time maps, like after the Renaissance, like when like fur trade was going on and people were starting to like really travel, um, the outlying edges of the maps would have polar bears on them, but people really didn't know what they looked like. They were considered sort of like this exotic creature that people hadn't seen because they were just not hanging out in where the polar bears are. In fact, the Greek root Arcticos refers to lands that, when viewed from the Mediterranean, lie below Ursa Major, the Great Bear. In the 1687 celestial chart by Johannes Hevelius, the Great Bear has a longer tail than the real animal to accommodate the constellation. Now here we have some bears from a map, and they're like, rawr. This is from 1555. In the 1590 map of Iceland by the Flemish cartographer Abraham Ortelius, who was also the first person to intuit continental drift, who also drew a map with Antarctica not covered by ice. On sea ice floating southward and eastward from the pole, skirting Greenland's north coast. I totally missed a sentence in there, but he did some mapping stuff. He was a pretty talented guy. Then the last thing I just wanted to show you are these goofy bears. Where'd they go? Here he is. Look at this goofy bear. So, and that guy's like, yeah, that's not what a polar bear looks like, I don't think. But the maps began to become more accurate, obviously, as time went on. People would travel and they would keep track of stuff and things. Here it goes on about the fur traders, how the fur traders were instrumental to mapping some of the outer lying areas in like Canada and the north and whatnot. So there you go. Now this is a serious topic. I think it's important to talk about serious topics every once in a while and kind of take a step back. So this is When the World Looked Away. This is the destruction of the Hulfa Cemetery. So this is in Armenia, Azerbaijan, so kind of on the border, which has been under strife for a really long time. Like if you look at the size of the countries all around that area, like Armenia, Azerbaijan, Georgia, they expand, they go down, they expand, they go down, they go down, they go down, they expand a little. Like it's just this constant back and forth. So this happened just 25 years ago. These pictures are black and white, but it wasn't that long ago. These are called Kachkars, and these are the gravestones that were used by the Armenians, and it's believed that that's where the souls of the people are held. And each stone is unique and individual and created by the family at the direction of the family, often with animals and designs, things that were meaningful to the individual. Here's one of the priests who has fled the area, and he's talking about the destruction of his cemetery. And he's obviously crying. This is some pictures of them destroying the cemetery. This is what it looked like after they went through and pretty much destroyed everything. This is what it did look like. This was in 1915. So you can see the sharp detail on some of these rocks. They're considered sacred. Here's a young boy posing by one. Many believe the cross stones serve as a kind of mediator between the heaven and the souls of those buried underneath. So for that to happen, the desecration of this graveyard is just pretty much the worst thing that could happen, like culturally. Just an awful thing. So this conflict is still going on. I belong to the Azerbaijan and the Armenian subreddits, which, I mean, it's Reddit, but still, you can kind of read each side and kind of get a feel for what's going on. And what's going on is the people are cool and the governments are not. I mean, it's a tale as old as time, right? And then the people get whipped up into hating the other people by their government, because the government's like, oh, don't look at us. We're fine. Look at these people over here. And then before you know it, and it's also about territory, land, right? Natural resources. Saudi Arabia has been discovered to be rich with undiscovered archaeological sites, to be specific, 100,000. And in total, there have been 10,000 new ones that have been discovered recently. This is something on Farison Island, which is an island off the coast of Saudi Arabia. And this guy who's there now with boots on the ground is like, we discover new sites every day. And this information's coming out a little bit because the United States is friendly, or the Westerners are friendly with Saudi Arabia for whatever reason. But there's a lot of exciting stuff that's coming out about past cultures, and what the economy was like, and what the land was like, and the politics and the people. And the thing that they've discovered the most, and I don't think it's in here, but I forgot what I was going to say. I think it's on the next one. Yeah, it's on the next one. This is an 8,000-year-old temple that was recently kind of rediscovered, not so much discovered. This is in Al Faw, which is southwest of Riyadh. And it demonstrates that a culture of temples, rituals, and idol worship predated the monolithic, non-idol worshippers, anti-temple practices of Islam that exist there today. So it sounds like the writer's like, yeah, like not happy about this. These discoveries could also challenge the widely accepted premise that the Islamic conquest civilized the desert people of Arabia. So it changes history, or known history. Now, do you ever sit down and say to yourself, wow, I really want to know about water slides? And so you go and you look up the history of water slides. Well, Fun Crew USA has got you covered. So textbooks are full of important information, wars, proclamations, innovations, but what about water slides? It's rare to meet someone these days who hasn't experienced at least one water slide. He goes on about water slides. So this is the one of the first ones. This was known as the Wonderland Chute. And this looks like a horror show. You probably scraped up your back. It looked like you didn't really have a good angle for for getting up off of it. But people were like, wow, yeah, this is cool. And water parks were really popular back in the late 1800s, early 1900s. And I don't know if you're quite aware of this. I'm just going to show you some more pictures before we move on into conspiracy land. These are some of these old outdoor pools. Look, there's a water slide. This is Ocean Park, St. Augustine, Florida. This was known as the biggest pool in the world before it was destructed. Hot Springs, South Dakota, largest plunge bath. Redondo Beach House, California. The Park Central, New York. The Greenbrier Pool, White Sulphur Springs, West Virginia. Charlevoix, Michigan. And the Sutro Baths in San Francisco. These are the Sutro Baths. I think I was reading the one below and I meant to read the one above, so you'll figure it out. Some really cool old pictures. This is a kind of random, not the same. This is in Moscow. This is a building that was supposed to be something else, and they ended up turning it into a pool. So it was supposed to be, there was a Church of Christ there. It got demolished. Something else was going to be done with it. They weren't sure. They made it into a pool, and now has a church on top of it again, from what I understand. I didn't go that deep with it, but here it looks like Chewbacca 2 years ago totally hooked you guys up with the information, so you can read into that. Now, America's first female detective, was born in upstate New York. And this woman was really something else. So Kate Warren was born in the southern tier town of Erin, which is located in Chemung County. Not much is known about her years of growing up, but basically what happened is she was a widow by 23. She didn't want to get married again. She's like, nah, I don't want to get married. I want to do other things. So she walked into the Pinkertons and was like, you need to hire me. And they're like, but you're a woman. And she's like, yeah, but I'm really good. So they hired her. And she was head of the agency. within a short amount of time. She was even involved in thwarting an assassination plot against Abraham Lincoln. And she also was involved in a prominent embezzlement case. And her work was just very impressive. And she was named Supervisor of Women Agents for the newly formed Female Detective Bureau. So they put her in charge of like all of the female detectives. It's pretty cool. All right, we're coming to the end. Now, I did not know that this was a thing, but now that I know it's a thing, I say, oh yeah, of course that's a thing. So this is a sewing bird. It would go on the edge of a table with a little clamp. So if you were sewing, you could hold that and taut the fabric. So you could hold it out and you could sew without having to constantly lift it up. So that's a sewing bird. There are probably people that collect these. This is a very neat thing. I did not know what this is. I found out about these things. So I have a new Christmas wish right here. So some intaglio rings. We could definitely go for some intaglio rings. So I'm the kind of girl where I would prefer a ring like this than like a big stupid diamond. Don't get me wrong, diamonds are beautiful, stunning, right? But they're not great. Now this is a book. I just wanted to read the title to you. The Apoplectic Palm Tree, or The Happy Happening Among Blacks and Whites at the Greater Mount Moriah Solid Rock True Happiness Baptist Church and Funeral Parlor. A novel for like $15. For $15 you can buy this novel and you can see what it's all about. Okay, now we're going into Conspiracy Land. So there's an island that is kind of like between like Alaska and like Russia, and because it's not super huge and it's kind of in the middle of nowhere, the United States didn't really say anything when Russia kind of took it over. It was like, okay, Russia's kind of, whatever, done with this island. But now with the invasion of Ukraine, the United States is like, hey, wait a minute. That is our island. We should own that island, not you. And so they're fighting over sovereignty and territorial integrity issues, which were not really to the forefront earlier. They were just basically kind of ignored. There were islands that were kind of in a gray sort of area. So this is just something that's going on. It was permanent settlers happened in 1921, but in 1924 it was seized by the Bolshevik henchmen on the Soviet gunboat Red October, and the American settlers were arrested and detained, with some dying in captivity. So there was this island. It just kind of happened. So another island, there's an island called Jeannette Island on, this one belongs to Russia. This does not belong to the United States. But this is an island that's blacked out on Google Maps. Like, you cannot see it at all. And people are saying, oh, that must mean that there's like something there, like something really serious, right? So if we scroll in, wait a minute. I'm an idiot. What did I do? Stop. Oh no. I messed it up. I broke Google Earth. Oh no. Okay, let's try this again. All right. Maps. This time, oh wow, this is weird. I was looking at this thing yesterday, and now you can't see it? Like, what? I don't understand. What? Okay, here we go. So this is Jeannette Island, and you can see it's... Oh. I swear to you, this was not there yesterday. It was just black. This was not there yesterday. But presumably that's Jeanette Island, but you can see it's blacked out there. But you can see part of it. So I guess looks like there's part of it that's been magnified, so it looks like there's something there, but I think there's probably more to it. All right. Now this is a terrible story I came across. Nazino Island, also known as Nazinsky, is situated in Siberia at the confluence of the rivers Ob and Nazina, approximately 800 kilometers to the north of Tomsk. It is known as Death Island or Cannibal Island because around 6,000 people were deported and abandoned there in the summer of 1933 by order of the Soviet authorities, and 4,000 of them died. At present, different sites commemorate the victims in the area, and every June a ceremony is held both on the island and in the town in honor of the deceased victims. So they basically gulagged people to this place. They were like, oh, we have this like really far away island. We can stick people on it and, it'll be cool. But then they left them. And there were no supplies. There were no ships going there. There was no rescue. But they found themselves in a place where there was no food. There was no shelter. And cannibalism was the only gruesome way to survive. And that's crazy, right? I mean, just... And then it goes into this horrible story, which I'm actually not going to go into. But I'm going to cheer you up now. I'm going to show you some cool stuff. We're going to end with this. So Lake Baikal, we've talked about Lake Baikal before. I found some really lovely pictures that a person has taken of the area, and I think it shows how cool it is. Well, this is just one spot. There's lots of areas in Lake Baikal because it's so huge. So this particular woman, I think she must be, or the person she's traveling with must be taking the pictures. But they're very lovely. Different breed of people out there for sure. All right, so jeffcarlisle.com. If you want a cool poster, this is totally your guy. Another night at the Warp Core Cafe. And if we scroll down, I'm not going to say anything because I'm not going to spoil it. But if you look, you might begin to recognize maybe a couple of people in the background of this. Just a couple, maybe. I will point out one, and that's Robin Williams. The rest you'll have to figure out on your own. There's a PDF which I'll include, which has all of everybody in there. If you feel like you don't have them all and you want to check, that's the list. So with that, we are going to close. I hope everybody has a good Monday. It was snowing. It's not snowing now. But if you're in the Northeast, you definitely want to bundle up.